everybody, and welcome to the section 1.1 flip video. We're going to get started right away, so be sure that you're filling in your guided note sheet. That will be taken for a formative grade tomorrow at the beginning of class. So without further ado, let's talk about comparative government. Firstly, defining what comparative government is, which is the systematic study and comparison of diverse political systems across the world. And so look at the different countries that we're going to be studying this year together. They're all over the world. They're all in different kind of political systems. They have different institutions, different ideologies. And so make sure that you commit these 6 countries, the United Kingdom, Mexico, Russia, China, Iran, and Nigeria, to memory. Because on my tests, on the AP exam, you can only use facts and evidence from these 6 countries. You can't use any other country to support your response on FRQs. So be sure that you commit these 6 countries and know a lot about these 6 countries as we move through the course. We're going to quickly talk about the types of data, which should be mostly a review for you from earlier classes, but it's important to note because this will come up a lot on tests and FRQs. Empirical data is information that's based on experimental objective data. So it's usually a statistic or quantity, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's something that's true, it's a fact, it's objective. And under that, we have qualitative data, which is any data that's not numerical. And this can be categories, descriptions, interviews, accounts, personal accounts, ethnographs, things like that. And quantitative data, as the name suggests, it's a quantity, it's a numerical figure, statistic, percentage, rate, anything like that. And so we'll do a quick check your understanding here. I want you to classify the following data types as either qualitative or quantitative. So the literacy rate of Nigeria, first-hand accounts of Uyghur concentration camps in China, and the percentage of Islamic adherence in Iran. Classify these as either qualitative or quantitative. Pause the video and come back when you're done. Hopefully you classified them as I did. A and C are quantitative, B is qualitative. The literacy rate of Nigeria is a percentage, it's a quantity, so it's quantitative, and so is the percentage of Islamic adherence in Iran. And first-hand accounts of Uyghur concentration camps are personal accounts, it's a quality, it's qualitative data. We also have fact versus opinion, so this is an important distinction to make. Empirical statements, and these can also be called positive statements, are factual, objective statements. It's how something is, it's the truth. For instance, Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. That's true, it happened, there's no room for negotiation on that. Normative statements, though, are opinionated and subjective or how something should be. So there's usually a value judgment. For instance, Russia should not have invaded Ukraine. You might think so, and I might agree with you, but that doesn't mean that everybody does. People have different perspectives on the issues, and it's not a hard truth necessarily, right? So value judgments, better or worse, should or should not happen, things like that are normative statements. We want to avoid these in comparative government. We want to focus strictly on empirical statements unless the question asks for a normative statement. Empirical statements are what we're going to be using on exams and tests, things like that. And they use empirical data, empirical statements, empirical data to back that up, right? So check your understanding again. Classify the following data types as either normative or empirical. Circle the correct letter on the note sheet as you do this. Pause the video and then come back once you've finished. So I hope you classified them as I did and got them correct. A, the bedtime for a 9-year-old should be 8 p.m. You might think so. Somebody else says it's 10 p.m., 9 p.m., 6 p.m. There's no hard truth on that. It's a normative statement. The Dodgers won the 2025 World Series. That's a fact. It happened. There's no room for negotiation on that. It's empirical. And then C, Iran should modify their political system to be more inclusive. We might think so. Not everybody does. There's a wealth of opinions on this issue. There's no hard objective truth. It's a normative statement. So now we're going to talk about 6 different indices that we use to measure countries. Firstly is the Human Development Index. And so I want you on your note sheet to just jot down 1 or 2 quick sentences about these indices, and then we'll do an activity with them tomorrow where you explore what they really mean. So the Human Development Index, like I just said, measures 3 things: literacy, life expectancy, and GDP per capita, right? So education, health, and wealth, you can think. It's a 0 to 1 scale where 1 is the most developed, 0 is the least developed. And so you may be asking yourself now, what is GDP exactly? So GDP is the consumption of all goods and services in a country, investment spending, government spending, and then net exports. X minus I is just exports minus imports, right? The monetary value, I should say, of exports minus imports. The GDP per capita, you take that, the sum of all those, divided by the population, gets you the GDP per capita, which measures wealth. And then the GDP growth rate is a percentage, and it's how much the economy expanded in a country over a given time period, right? We also have the Gini index, which measures income inequality in a country. So 0%, it's a percentage. 0% is perfect equality, 100% is perfect inequality. So we want to strive for perfect equality, perfect income equality. And usually wealthier countries do have lower Gini scores, meaning they're more equal in income distribution. That's not always the case. You'll see that tomorrow. But it's a general trend that you should be aware of. We also have the Freedom House Index, which measures political rights, civil liberties. And so there's 3 classifications: free, partly free, or not free, where 0 is the least free, 100 is the most free. This measures your social kind of freedoms that you have. Can you protest? Can you vote? Do you have freedom of speech? Does the government infringe on anything? Is the internet censored? Things like that. We also have the Corruption Perceptions Index, which assesses risks and perceptions of corruption, where 0 is the most corrupt, 100 is the least corrupt. We have the Fragile States Index as well, which has the potential for a state to weaken or turn into a failed state. And a failed state is really where the government has lost its authority, it can't project its authority anymore, and they've lost control essentially. Where 0 is the least fragile, so it's the most stable country, and 120 is the most fragile, the least stable, most susceptible for becoming a failed state. So with that, that's the end of the notes for section 1.1. I want you to go back to the learning objective, explain how political scientists use data to construct knowledge and communicate inferences. Write down at least 3 sentences at the bottom of your guided note sheet answering this objective. So how would you use the indices and the data types that I just presented to make inferences about countries and communicate those inferences and compare them between each other? Write down 3 sentences of that. Be sure to have that turned in. We'll be turning that in tomorrow. Make sure you have that done. And then if you haven't turned in your activity 1 packet, that get to know you packet, that is past due, that was due earlier today at the end of class. So be sure you submit that if you haven't already. I'll take it for full credit by the end of this week, so just make sure that you submit that as soon as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow in class and then also for the 1.2 video. So have a great night, you guys. See you later.